Meet Ken. He's an 800-hour pilot flying in the right seat of a PC-12, and he's loving life. Now meet Dave. Dave has the same amount of hours as Ken, but he's not flying a PC-12. Instead, he's sitting at home, scrolling job boards, convinced there's nothing he can do until he hits ATP minimums. The difference between Ken and Dave is not talent, it's actually information. Everybody in aviation knows charter, cargo, commuter, and air ambulance exist. But what most career changers don't realize is how early you can actually get in. The average Part 135 pilot in the US makes about $131,000 a year. Charter captains flying jets are clearing well over $250,000, and the private aviation market right now is worth over $17 billion, and it's growing every single year. So the jobs are real, the money is real, and there's one FAA rule change from 2018 that made it way easier for low-time pilots to start building turbine time. A lot of pilots, unfortunately, still aren't using it. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how Part 135 hiring really works, how many hours you actually need, the one rule change that lets you start logging turbine time much earlier than you think, and the networking playbook that 2 career changers I interviewed used to land turbine jobs after the age of 50. Neither one of them got hired from submitting a resume. But first, let me make sure you understand how the jobs actually work, because most people get this part wrong. Part 135 is basically everything that's commercial flying, but not the airlines: charter, cargo, commuter, air ambulance, survey, bush flying. And it's not one job. There are entry-level gigs where pilots get started, mid-level jobs in turboprop cargo and charter where your resume gets improved quickly, and premium positions that some pilots never leave because the pay and the lifestyle are just that good. For some of you, Part 135 might end up being the career, not just a stepping stone. All right, so how many hours do you actually need? You don't need 1,500 hours. That's airline thinking. Part 135 is different. To be a pilot in command under Part 135 VFR, the FAA requires 500 hours of total time, 100 hours of cross-country, and 25 night cross-country. For PIC under IFR, you need 1,200 hours total, 500 cross-country, 100 night, and 75 hours of instrument time, with at least 50 of those in an actual airplane. And if you want to fly a turbojet or an airplane with 10 or more seats or commuter operations, you need an ATP. That's the 1,500-hour world. Now here's the part where a lot of people get confused. For an SIC, second in command, the FAA requires a commercial certificate and an instrument rating. The FAA doesn't set a specific total time minimum for SIC under Part 135. So why do some pilots with 600 hours get hired and others with the same certificates can't even get a phone call? Insurance. The FAA sets the legal floor. Insurance sets the practical floor. And those are 2 very different numbers. Turboprop SIC jobs usually start becoming realistic around 750 to 800 hours. Jet SIC takes just a little bit more. The FAA tells you what's legal. The insurance company decides whether you actually get to sit in the airplane or not. And that brings us to the rule change I mentioned at the top of the video. Because in 2018, the FAA made one move that completely changed the game for low-time pilots trying to get into Part 135. All right, so before 2018, if you sat in the right seat of a single pilot airplane like a Caravan or a PC-12 under Part 135, you had a problem. You could not log that time as second in command. The airplane didn't require 2 pilots, so the FAA basically said, well, you're not really second in command, you're just kind of sitting there looking pretty. Then the FAA created the SIC Professional Development Program, often referred to as the PDP. It went into effect November of 2018 under FAR 135.99. And here's how it works. If a Part 135 operator gets their SIC PDP approved by the FAA, they can assign a second in command to an airplane that doesn't normally require 2 pilots. And most importantly, that SIC can log the time. So this is a huge deal because it means low-time pilots can start building turbine SIC time in airplanes like a Caravan, the PC-12, and some King Air operations way earlier than before. And that SIC time, well, it counts towards your ATP. But here's the trap, and this is important. Not every operator has a PDP in place. Some operators will stick a pilot in the right seat without a PDP in place. The pilot thinks they're building valuable time, and then later, when they go to use that time, they find out that it doesn't count the way that they thought it did, and that is a huge gut punch, to say the least. For example, I know of a situation where someone was in a training class at a regional airline, and then they failed the logbook audit because it was determined that their 135 time wasn't legal. In other words, there was no PDP in place, and they were promptly kicked out of that training class. There was quite a few of the folks actually that happened to in one particular training class. So imagine the trauma that that would cause. So before you take any right seat Part 135 job, you need to ask 3 questions. Does this operator have an FAA approved PDP? Can I log this time as an SIC, and how exactly is it being logged? If they can't answer these questions clearly, keep on looking. You can call your local FSDO and ask which operators in your area have approved PDPs, or just ask directly during your networking conversation, which is what we're going to talk about next. Because once you understand the hours in the PDP, the next question is the big one. How do you actually get one of these jobs? So here's the thing about Part 135. Many of the greatest jobs, the good ones, well, they're never actually posted anywhere. Instead, they're filled through word of mouth, referrals, and knowing the right chief pilot. Once you clear the minimums, who you know is often the biggest factor. And I know that sounds kind of annoying, but sadly, it's the truth. I recently interviewed 2 guys who both landed Part 135 jobs after the age of 50. Career changers, both of them. And neither one got hired by just submitting a resume online. Ken was a pastor who started flight training at 53. He started networking at around 500 hours. Not because he expected to get hired right then. He did it so that by 750 hours, people already knew who he was. He spent 2 hours every single day after flying just researching companies, finding people on LinkedIn, building a targeted list. And he didn't reach out and say, hey, can you help me find a job? Instead, he said, hey, I've got 600 hours and I know that's not enough, but I'd really appreciate any advice that you can send my way. And that made people want to help him. And more importantly, it made them remember him later on. And here's the cool part. His Part 135 job came from a 4-minute YouTube video that he made about his training. A local Part 135 owner saw it and thought, that was me when I was starting out. Ken asked the guy to lunch, not to ask for a job, but just to pick his brain. A few weeks later, the phone rang. Will was a Delta mechanic who wanted to fly. At 50 years old, with about 600 hours, he landed a Learjet SIC job at a Part 135 operator. And Will's strategy was even simpler. Walk the ramp. He saw a guy sitting next to his Aerostar one day and he just said, hey man, that's a beautiful airplane. And they, not surprisingly, started talking. A friendship developed. That guy ended up giving Will over 100 hours of twin time through a maintenance for flying trade. And that twin time is what built the resume that got him into his Learjet job. Now, if you're watching this and you're a career changer trying to break in, do me a favor, pause the video and drop your total hours and what type of Part 135 job you're aiming for down in the comments. I read every single one, and it does really help me to figure out what type of topics to cover in future videos. All right, let's get back to the video. All right, so if you're a CFI, you already have ramp access. So after your last lesson, don't go home right away. Instead, walk the hangar row. Look for open doors. Talk to the old guys sitting on couches in their hangars. They know people and they have time and they will definitely talk to you. Now, here are a few more ways in. You could work at an FBO, even part-time. It puts you around charter operators every single day. And I know pilots who have gone from the fuel truck into the cockpit. Now, you can also use FlightAware. You can use it to track the companies that you might want to work for. See where their planes land. Visit that FBO. Overnight crews are your best chance to actually talk to people and get that valuable advice. You can also send cold emails to chief pilots even when they're not hiring. Keep it short. Something like, hey, I have X hours, I'm based in Y, and I'd love to fly your airplane. They save those emails. And when someone quits on a Friday, guess who they call on Monday? the last good resume that came in. Why? Because it's convenient and easy for them to do so. And of course, monitor the job boards. JS Firm, Climb to 350, BizJet Jobs, Airline Pilot Central, and company websites. Watch forums like Pilots of America and go on Reddit and look for the flying subreddit. I actually had a very similar experience in Boise. A mutual friend introduced me to a local 135 director of operations. After he met me, because of the referral, he actually offered me a PIC job of his King Air, and he said that he'd even pay for my type rating. So that was a really good deal. Why didn't I take it? Well, I turned him down because I wanted to fly Part 121 at a regional airline, and a few months later, that was the job that I got hired into. But cold resume? Zero chance that I'm getting a guy offering to pay for my type rating in a King Air. That's just how it works. So the bottom line is this: Part 135 hiring is not mostly about sending resumes. It's about getting known early, building relationships before you need them, being around the right people, and making it easy for someone to trust you. That's how Ken got in, that's how Will got in, that's how I got the opportunity, and that's how a lot of these jobs really work. Now, if you'd like to hear more on Ken and Will's stories, we'll place links down in the description because I have full interviews with each one of them. So Part 135 has great operators, but it also has bad ones, and you need to know the difference. You need to watch out for vague answers about maintenance, watch out for repeated incidents, and you can look those up on the NTSB database for yourself. Watch out for pressure culture, no real training structure, and turnover that nobody really can explain. These are all red flags, and you need to be careful. Now, some operators will pay for your training or maybe even a type rating, but they're going to tie it to some type of repayment agreement. And that can be totally fair, or in some cases, it could actually be predatory. So read everything before you sign. Ask how long the commitment is. Ask what happens if you leave early. Ask what the actual dollar amount is. Some of these training contracts are reasonable. Others will cost you more than the training was even worth. Self-funding a type rating can make you more hireable, but only if the type is actually useful in the market that you're targeting. In other words, don't go spend $15,000 on a type rating for an airplane that nobody in your area flies. How do you figure this out? Ask around. And ask hard questions during the interview. What's the schedule? What's the fatigue policy? What does the training look like? A good operator is going to have standards well above the FAA minimums. And if the answers feel vague, well, that's probably another red flag that you don't want to ignore. All right, so here's what the actual plan looks like from 0 to Turbine PIC. Phase 1, get your ratings done as quickly and efficiently as possible. Private instrument, commercial, and potentially a multi-add-on. Part 61 works great for most career changers. Then we have Phase 2. Now you're going to build valuable time. That could be CFI work, safety pilot doing cost sharing, or lower time commercial flying. And if you can find an SIC job with a PDP in this phase, even better. The goal isn't just more hours here, it's actually better hours. Phase 3, breaking into Part 135 as a second in command. Well, for a lot of pilots, this starts becoming realistic around the 700 to 800 hour range, depending upon the operator and the insurance that they carry. And that's where all that networking is going to pay off for you. Phase 4, from there you upgrade in Part 135, move to a bigger operator, pivot to regionals, or build toward a long-term charter or a career flying corporate. And here's why this path actually works especially well for career changers. Maturity matters in Part 135. Customer-facing charter flying is different from airline flying. Professionalism, life experience, how you carry yourself, all of that stuff really matters. And Part 135 doesn't have a mandatory retirement at 65 like the airlines do. So for some of you, that's going to be a really big deal. Now, one more thing, and I can't say this enough. Get your first class medical before you spend a dime on flight training. Because if you can't hold the medical, well, none of the rest of this stuff matters at all. So here's the bottom line. Part 135 isn't hard to find. But knowing how to actually break in at low hours, that's the part most career changers don't understand well enough. The SIC PDP lets you start logging turbine time way earlier than most people think. The networking playbook works as long as you're willing to do the work. And the path, well, it can be shorter than you've been told. So if you want to see the full interviews with Ken and Will, as I mentioned earlier, those links are going to be there for you down in the description. If you want a step-by-step breakdown of how to get through flight training as quickly and efficiently as possible, I encourage you to check out my guide to accelerated flight training. You can find it at flywithtrent.com. So if you've enjoyed this video, please do me a solid and smash that like button so the algorithm will show it to other people. And if you have comments or questions, you can leave those right down below because I do read every single one of them and I'll do my very best to give you an answer. And if you're not yet a subscriber of the channel, please consider becoming a subscriber by smashing that subscribe button, because what I'm trying to do this year is attract more sponsors so I can create aviation scholarships for you guys. And the way that I'm going to be able to do that is by having as many subscribers as possible, because that's the vanity number that they pay most attention to. My name is Trent. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you in the next video soon. Take care. Bye-bye.